All right, let's get started. Um, Welcome, everyone. Got a great group of people here, I see, and we're here to talk about learning the basics of Power BI Desktop and the Power BI service. And I'm Heather Masters. I'm a lead CSA at Microsoft in the modern workspace, and I work primarily with state and local government. Just a little about me here. I live in Austin, Texas, and I started my IT career as a database analyst. Went then to SharePoint and then SharePoint Online and Teams and Viva and Power BI. My passion for employee engagement and analytics is what kind of brought me back to the data space and into Power BI to get all the employee engagement analytics from SharePoint and Teams and be able to crunch those numbers and visualize what users were doing in the M365 space. Um, I have four dogs, but none of them are in the meeting today. And love to explore new beaches. So for this Teams meeting, you're welcome to turn on live captions. And if you want to unmute your microphone, you'll just hit the unmute button. Please feel free to send chat messages. I think we'll have Sherry from Microsoft being monitoring those chat messages. And if you need to raise your hand, if you'd like to do that, you can do that as well. So just a little quote to start us off. Everyone should have a personal Power BI dashboard, data culture at your fingertips. Whether it's one that you created yourself or one that you have as a favorite and like to refer to often, I will show you how in the Power BI service you can get to that recent or favorited data and be able to have that at a moment's notice. Our agenda for today, just getting started with Power BI. We're going to talk through installing the Power BI desktop if you don't already have it, visualizing SharePoint list data, creating a report, publishing a report, and understanding workspaces. And when we're talking about installing Power BI, if you don't have access to be able to download and install, and it's something that you can put in a ticket with your IT department. If you do have access, you can follow along here. And if not, this will be recorded, so you can come back to it later. We're going to first install, then connect some SharePoint data, and we'll go from there on our Power BI journey. So if you have access, you can go and let me actually share my other window here. Into Power BI. For you, this will be app.powerbi.gov, and you'll sign in with your work address, so your work email. You can also get to Power BI by using your app launcher if you are already logged in to M365. So you can just go to Power BI. And for government tenants, you'll see this Power BI gov.us. So if in any of the documentation you might refer to on the Microsoft website, just remember that your tenant is that Power BI gov. And from that homepage in Power BI, there is an arrow. in the top link bar, and you're able to hit download. So you can download the Power BI desktop app. Once you get that downloaded, you'll see once you click that arrow, Power BI desktop is an option here. And I've already got it installed, but you'll be able to download, open that. It's telling me to open it, but if you don't already have it, you'll be prompted to download. And then you'll get to click Run in the pop-up to install the application. You can follow the steps on the installation wizard. And then when installation is complete, there's a checkbox to launch Power BI Desktop, and you can hit Finish, and it will launch for you. And in Power BI Desktop, once you get that, you'll be able to see this launch screen, and it's a getting started screen, a bunch of great information. So you'll see this getting started with Power BI Desktop video, and then different reports. So building reports, query view concepts, uploading your reports, and create a phone report. And so this is just the first time startup screen. You can hit that window here, the X in the window here to close that screen. And I see in chat there, can't download, blocked by administrator. Yeah, you might have to put in a ticket for that, and get somebody to help you install that. So some terms for Power BI. You might have heard of a Power BI dashboard. A dashboard is a single page that shows visualizations of the most important elements from one or more reports. And the report is made up of one or more pages. In most cases, each page is designed to tell a story, and that story is told with some visualizations, text, shapes, and images. And an app can encapsulate a report. So it's a packaged content with managed permissions for different audiences, and it might have reports and dashboards. So I'm going to start in SharePoint and show you how to visualize SharePoint data. It's really one of the easiest entry points into Power BI. And so I've got a SharePoint list here that I've created. You can, if you need to create a list for some data on your own, you can create a new list based on an Excel file that you've got existing for some data to play around with. Also, I'll give you some links here later on where you can download a bunch of samples. They're going to be Power BI PBIX file samples and in Excel samples. Lots of good data to play around with. Or you can use data that you've got that already exists. So I've got this list created, and you'll see here that on my ribbon, I've got integrate. And this is just FYI, newer experience. The lists inside SharePoint are now looking like the Microsoft lists you may have created through OneDrive or just through the app launcher. They're getting that icon treatment. So this might look a little different than you're accustomed to, but you'll be seeing more and more of these new style of lists. So under the integrate button, you have Power BI and visualize the list. And It's going to ask me here, create a Power BI report and semantic model from this SharePoint list. Now, semantic model is a newer term, but it used to be called a data set. So you can think of these semantic models as the data behind your report. And you'll see here, if you continue, you'll have access to the report and the associated model. Will be visible to anyone who can view the list. This remains true for individual list items that have item level permissions that only you have access to. So it's important to realize when you're selecting the list, if you've got some specialized permissions in that list, that those permissions will not flow to this report that you create in Power BI. Everyone who has access to the Power BI will be able to see all the items in the list. So just something to remember as you are creating your report here. If you've already done this, then it'll automatically find your semantic model, your data set, and reuse it. And if you encounter this message without first selecting visualize the list on the SharePoint list, select cancel. So we're going to create a report. And just going back to the slide deck. So you have this here. So navigate to the SharePoint list, go to integrate, Power BI, visualize the list, and create report. And you don't need Power BI desktop to do this. This is all in the Power BI service. You can see it's thinking here, generating my report. And you watched me do this. I, now have a Power BI report from the list that I was just looking at in SharePoint. So you can view the data here. This list happens to have about 700 items. So, hard to view on a page. And much easier to view here. Now, you can see it automatically created the visuals for me. I didn't choose these visuals, and they may not be the visuals that are most impactful to you. And so then you can change them from here. But before I make any changes, I'm going to go ahead and publish to the list and name my report. And you'll see it tells me the report has been saved. If I go back to my list here, I might do a little refresh. Now when I go to Power BI, you'll see that my Power BI has already been generated, this PPI financial, so I can navigate to my new Power BI report in the Power BI service, or I can do that from the list. So now inside the Power BI service, you'll see that you've got the option here to make any edits that you'd like to make. And if you want to change up the visuals, change up the colors, you have the option to do that here in the service. And then once you make any changes you'd like, and I will move from a clustered bar chart to a stacked column report for this visual. Publish that back to the list. And then my report is saved. So just the steps again here. Create your report, create that semantic model, and that's all done for you. Report is visible to all the list viewers, and it doesn't filter any list items by security. Then you get to name your report. And you'll see that you can publish to your list. The report lives within the list, and you're not able to access that through the Power BI service or desktop. I see a question out there.
Yes, I noticed you used an Excel spreadsheet as the source. Most of our data resides in an not MySQL, but MSSQL.
Mm-hmm.
Can that also be the source or used as the source? Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. When we get into Power BI Desktop, I will show you a list of all the different data sources that you can access. Now, if your data is on premise and you're trying to connect to the Power BI service, you have to have a way to be able to connect that data. There may be what's called a gateway required to connect to that on-prem data. If your SQL is in Azure SQL, then that's easy. You don't need a gateway.
Collection methodology.
But definitely can be done not just to Excel or SharePoint or SQL or any Microsoft products, but a lot of products that are non-Microsoft you can connect to and visualize within the Power BI visualizations.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Sure. So another way that you can easily connect to data is going to Power BI Desktop. And I'm going to connect to a SharePoint online list as a data source. And let's do a blank report here. Now this is Power BI Desktop. Let me grab my credentials here. So once you've gotten the ability to download Power BI Desktop, you'll see that you can use Power BI Desktop to connect to a lot of data sources. You'll see this Get Data is one of the first items in the ribbon. So you see common data sources include Excel, Power BI semantic models. These are your data sets that you may have already created within the Power BI service. If I go to more here, you get the whole list of all of the different ways that you can connect data to Power BI. So that's a long list. I'm going to go and visualize some other SharePoint data here. You'll see that I can connect to a SharePoint online list. And I'm going to connect here. And you'll see in the information for the site URL that you're connecting to, you want to connect to the root of that site and not specifically to the list. And you'll sign in with your work or school account. All right. So now when I connect to my data here, you'll see that I've got all of the lists and libraries that are available in this site. I'm going to choose this financial data list as my demo content, and it's going to show you the data before you you load it, so you can review, make sure that it's what you were looking for. And if you wanted to start transforming the data, you could do it from this screen, but there are lots of options after you've loaded the data to be able to transform. And if you are thinking about the data types for each of your columns, that's what we mean by transform. So if you need a numerical column versus a text column when you're connecting to these lists, then you'll be able to do that in transform. You can see most of my items here are alphanumeric once it connects to that list. So we walked through this, the get data, and then showing all of the different options for getting your data. So I'm going to go back to Power BI desktop here. And you'll see that I can locate my data in the field list. And I'm way over to the right of my screen here to show you the data that I've got from my list. I can also visualize it in a table view where I can come in and look at all of my different fields. I can rename them here.
Heather, when you have a stopping point, there is a question. Somebody's hand is raised.
Great. I'll take your question, yes.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so two questions. I used SharePoint folder. What's the difference between SharePoint folder, SharePoint list, and SharePoint online list? This is one question. And the other, I saw that you use your personal account. I did the same. So the source data are on my personal SharePoint. What happened when I forward it to other people? If it's my personal SharePoint, will they be able to refresh the report? What happens when I change my password?
So wherever that list is published into your SharePoint Online account. So mine is actually not in my OneDrive or my personal account. That was in a shared SharePoint list. Now the reason I chose SharePoint Online list for this demo here is to visualize data that lives in a shared SharePoint Online space. Now, those options that you get when you, and let me go back to get data here. Those options that you see when you search for SharePoint.
Yeah. SharePoint folder, SharePoint online list. Yeah.
When I choose SharePoint folder, this is going to connect to a document library. It might not be list data, it would be library data instead. Then you've got the difference between SharePoint list and SharePoint online list would be pointing to an on-prem data source. You can only get, you see your connection credentials here are either anonymous or Windows. So this would be connecting to a data source that is SharePoint on premises. And the SharePoint Online list would be for SharePoint Online. I see. Did that answer your question there?
Yeah, except for the part, if it's my personal SharePoint folder, what will happen when
Like,
I
yeah,
forward
your
it to
OneDrive?
other?
If you're connecting to your OneDrive, are you connecting to a list within your OneDrive?
Folder.
A folder. So I would choose SharePoint folder in that case, and your site URL you would get from your OneDrive and paste that in.
Yeah, I was able to do it and I connected. My question is, when I finish developing the report and publish it to other users, they don't have my credential, but they can still be able to refresh the report, even that it's my personal SharePoint. That's the question.
They may be able to refresh the report visuals, but not necessarily the report data.
Which is fine. Yeah, I don't want them to see the data. I want them to see the visuals.
Right. So they may be able to hit refresh on the page in Power BI, but they won't be able to refresh the underlying data.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And second question, second hand up.
Hi, thank you, Heather. I was just wondering, are we going to get additional materials and anything from this presentation so that we can refer later? Thank you.
Yes, I've shared a copy of the deck with the organizers, so you should be able to get that.
Okay, do we know by any chance when we're going to get that one? I have not received it. So
I'm imagining after the conference.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they usually publish it to the website for the conference, all the recordings and the materials.
Excellent, thanks.
And then I see another item in chat. So my Microsoft login is Microsoft930.sharepoint.com or something like that. No, that's my demo. That's my demo account. Your account would be your North Carolina Worker School account that you normally would log into for SharePoint Online or any of your other M365 options there. And I'm still seeing 2 hands up.
I think those are the same folks. I'll lower them.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, so I've got my data. I could visualize, data from a SharePoint list or data from an Excel file. In any case, wherever my data is coming from, I have the ability to come in and make changes to the way that this looks, the type of field it is. So I can come in, rename my columns, make my fields numerical, add new columns, sort, and all of that based on my data. And I can build new visuals here, but I'm going to show you a visual that I've already got. And this is based on a sample that that we have available online. So I will paste in chat when we get to the end of the deck a bunch of sample materials that you're able to access. You can download and have data to play with yourself. This is just a sample of employee hiring and history here. You'll see that I've got multiple pieces of data, and these could be called queries or tables that are visualized in my Power BI. And this Power BI sample is available to you. I'm going to go ahead and publish this to show you what that publishing process looks like. So I'm going to save my changes here. And something important to remember, we've got, when you hit publish, be on the page that you would like to publish out, whether it's to your workspace or whether it's your workspace or another workspace. The page that you're on when you hit the publish button is going to be the first page that pops up. All the pages will be published, but they'll be in whatever order it is of the first page that you have selected when you hit publish. So I'm going to publish to my workspace here. You can think of the my workspace as your OneDrive for Power BI. It is available to you to store data in. It's not the best space to share data. So if you want to share data with a larger group, then you can select another workspace, an existing workspace where you can manage permissions. The only option for managing permissions in your own workspace is to share your content out. And you just want to do that maybe with a few people, but not everyone in the organization. So kind of like you would treat your OneDrive. So I'm going to select my workspace here. And this my workspace area can also be used for just testing things out. So I'm going to replace my data set. If I've already published this to the workspace that I set to publish to, it's going to ask you if you'd like to replace it.
There's a question in the chat, Heather, that's how do I access shared workspaces from the app version? Is that possible?
Yes, and I'm about to go into the service, so let's tackle that. So I just published my my Power BI, and here I am back in the service. On your left navigation, you'll see workspaces. Now, you'll see my workspace and any shared workspace that you've been provided access to. And that's how you'll navigate to those shared workspaces. And then another question in the chat, do you need to have SharePoint or OneDrive to utilize Power BI? No, absolutely not. Those are just really easy use cases to visualize your data quickly. Your agency has its data on our server. Yeah, absolutely. to reach that data. If that's an on-prem server, then you might need what's called a data gateway, a little more advanced than this course today, but we definitely can handle that connection to get your data. So here I am in the service, and I've just published my Power BI desktop to my Power BI service, and I published to my workspace. So let me navigate there. And you'll see in that workspace that my report that I just published is here, Employee Hiring and History. It also published my semantic model. So semantic model, remember, is the data set. This is the data that you're connected to. And so I can navigate to Employee Hiring and History. I've got the same reporting that I had in Power BI desktop. Now it's online. And in my workspace, I do have the option to send a link to someone to review. I can also make edits from this page or from the other pages. I can sort and filter depending on any filters that I've got available. So let's walk through the navigation for the Power BI service. We've got all of report pages here. And you can see in the file menu, I can save a copy. I can download this file. This is if you wanted to go back and work with something in Power BI desktop. And it looks like there might be another question in another hand up. Maggie?
If you have a question, please raise your hand. If you've already asked your question, can you please lower your hand? It looks like Maggie is the next one that we're available to answer. So if you want to come off mute, please go ahead and ask your question to Heather.
All right, and then Jessica has a question in chat while we're waiting for that. Maggie, to get off mute there, is there an advantage to using SharePoint list as opposed to Excel, or is it just preference? It is, yeah, it's probably just preference. I like to use both SharePoint lists or Excel to use as demo, but it's just wherever you've got your data. So you don't have to do a lot of transformation getting your data into Power BI. You just use whatever you've got, and you should be able to get it in and visualize. So I'll go back here. I can save a copy of my file if I want to make additional versions. I can download this file, and the download for Power BI is called a PBIX file. And this is a file that you're able to open in Power BI desktop. You can manage permissions, and this is managing permissions to this report in your workspace. Typically, it's going to be just you and your workspace, but you can also add additional folks to review your Power BI report. You can export this data to analyze in Excel, PowerPoint, or PDF. Good ways to share and not allow people to have access if that's your need. This is where you would share a link with users, and you'll see over on the far right, I can use bookmarks. So this will capture the report's current state. So if I need to filter my report at all, I can add this personal bookmark here, and I'll be able to refer to that later. I can have a full screen, fit to page, fit to width, or actual size. I can comment and favorite, and favoriting is a great way to get back to your data. So now when I navigate to the home page in my Power BI service, you'll see that I've got my recent and my favorites here. Now that employee hiring and history report I just favorited is available in the Power BI service. Now the other terms to be aware of here, you'll see as we navigate on our left navigation, a workspace is a place where you get to have your reports and your semantic models. If it's a shared workspace, and I'll go to this demo workspace, you'll see I might have a lot of reports and semantic models, and in some cases I also have dashboards. And dashboards are pieces of reports that you've published to a space to share. So you can share out data to users without giving them access to the whole report. They'll get a visualization, a piece of your report to view in a dashboard and be able to click through to more data if they need it. And since I published my employee hiring and history report here to my workspace, when I go back here and go to edit mode, you can edit your visualizations in the Power BI service, or you can make all your visualization changes in Power BI desktop.
Heather, can you talk about permissions? There's a question in the chat that says, can I send a link to another person so they can see the report, but not see the data set behind the report?
Sure. So you have a couple of options in that case. You'll see if we go, let me save this. And get out of edit mode here. So one of the things that you might want to do if you have that use case is share the report. You can see people in your organization can see the link and view and share. You can share the report and just send them a link, but you'll see here in manage permissions. I can go to advanced. So my employee hiring and history report, dashboard, and workbook are available here. I can add users, and you'll see that you can uncheck allow recipients to build content with the data associated with this report. You can also not allow them to share this report. And then you could give them an email notification that they have access, but it would be report only here. The other thing that you might do is embed the report inside a website or a SharePoint site, and that would just give the access to the visuals. So you have multiple options there if you need to limit who can do what. And we're running really close on time. But you'll see some more information in the deck that we'll share. Wanted to, while I still have you, share some links with you. So there's some great content out on learn.microsoft.com. Not only gives you access to a bunch of sample data that you can play with yourself, but additional training and learnings. And I've got this here. So you can go out to those sources and grab that data. And then we've got a survey for you. I'm going to paste in chat. And you'll probably also get a survey from the conference organizers, but I wanted to share that with you in this session so you could share your experiences there. And I think we have like 4 more minutes if we want to take any more questions. I see in the chat, someone was able to download through the Software Center and authenticate through MFA. So good news there.
Any other questions? Feel free to come off mute.
Melissa, how is Power BI different from or better than Tableau? Well, Tableau, I know that North Carolina has data sets in Tableau, similar that it's an online service where you can visualize your data. The advantage of having your data in Power BI is that you get to utilize all of your resources that are already in M365. And you're able to use your security that's already been set up in M365 and in Entra ID, and share with groups that you already collaborate with, maybe in teams. So a lot more flexibility. And how is Power BI different than Smartsheets? I know a lot of folks use Smartsheet. I've heard good things about it, but it's not really. It's a place to visualize your kind of flat data and your to-do lists and your project plans. Power BI can visualize a lot more than the data that exists just within the system. But great questions. Anyone else, feel free to come off mute here. Feel free to fill out the survey in the link. I noticed a link to Dataverse. Yes, that Dataverse link is a great way to get your people data, like the people within your organization, into a Power BI report. So yeah, definitely explore the Dataverse option. Let me get you a link here. I see another question in chat here. Is there a Power BI desktop versus cloud version, and what should you be using? The Power BI service is mainly for your use as you have published data through the Power BI desktop into the service to share with other people. You can do a lot more with transforming your data and creating new visualizations in Power BI desktop, get it to what you need, and then publish it up to the Power BI service. So I've just pasted in chat some info about using Power BI, use Power BI Dataverse data. So good information there, and a great way to make that data come to life. Well, thank you everyone for your time today, and great questions in the session. I hope you have a wonderful day.